All right, good morning, 7th graders. This is your teacher, Mr. Copperthite, with a review on the quizzes assignment that you completed on Friday, which will help giving this review will help you be ready for the tasks that you have on Khan Academy for your main task list today. So let's go ahead and go through the questions individually, and then we'll talk about the class performance accuracy-wise on the questions. So there are 15 questions in this particular quiz, and I'm not sure if you have the option that I have to be able to do flashcards of this, but this is kind of a cool feature on quizzes, which allows you to, assuming you're logged in, allows you to go back and look at quiz results and do them as flashcards like this. So if you have an equation that represents this relationship, so this quiz was about proportional relationships, so we're dealing with k-values, constants of proportionality, y equals ax or y equals kx, similar material to what you were dealing with on Wednesday. So if I have this table here and I want an equation to represent this relationship, if I know that 0 and 0 are in the relationship, we know that it's a proportional one. So if I look at my x's are going up by 1, my y's are going up by 25, so y equals 25x would be the equation that I could use to make this particular table. Same deal, constant of proportionality, same kind of table, same kind of thing. If my equation was y equals 25x, the 25 is my constant of proportionality. It's what does y change by for every x value. So if x goes up by 1, y goes up by 25, so that's your constant of proportionality. So 25 is it. If we have a question here, this is the Cookie Monster question, okay? So if I have a better deal of $2.98 for 15 ounces of Oreos or $2.50 for 14 ounces of Oreos, our goal here is to find out which one is the better deal per ounce. 15 ounces of Oreos at $3. If I divide those two quantities, that would mean that each ounce is 20 cents, or just about 20 cents. If I look at the Chips Ahoy and I divide that by 14, $2.50 divided by 14 is about 18 cents per ounce. So the Chips Ahoy cookies are actually the better deal, just because they're a couple of cents less per ounce. Okay, next question. Which of these is a unit rate that matches the proportional relationship represented by this graph? So now obviously with the flashcard thing, you don't have the questions where the answer choices are actually like, something you need to read. This is one of those questions where ultimately you would have to choose which one, but we can tell that the one that would be correct is going to use a unit rate that's based on this graph. So if I look at this graph, I can see that we've got, for example, 120 miles over 2 hours. So the unit rate for that would be 120 divided by 2, which is 60. So 60 miles per hour. So whichever description includes 60 miles per hour is our correct unit rate. Okay. If coffee costs $2 per pound, which graph models this relationship? On the flashcards, you can see it's a little bit small here, but if I look carefully at the graph, I can see that this graph in the bottom left corner, which is that's the correct answer, because if it's $2 per pound, if the cost is on the y-axis and the pounds is on the x-axis, which makes sense, cost over pounds, that means that right here, this graph, because it's $2 per 1 pound, that is the correct graph. So if that was graph A in this case. All right, so on our next question here, if Darius can type 50 words per minute, which graph represents his typing speed? So same deal here, it's hard to see the graphs on here. I can maybe look at the question a little bit later and see if the graphs are a little larger, a lot larger on here, but it would basically be graph A. I'll look at the question later and we'll talk about that table, talk about that graph. Okay, next question, which does have tables. Which models the relationship y equals 2x? So table A, B, or C. So which relationship has the y that's twice the value of the x in every row? So if I look at table C here, it says 7 to 14, so 7 times 2 is 14, 10 times 2 is 20, 17 times 2 is 34. So table C is the correct answer there. Next question. If Darius can type 50 words per minute in 1 hour, how many words will he type? Well, 60 minutes per hour. At 50 words per minute, that means 60 times 50, which is 3,000. 3,000 words would be the correct answer. Does this graph show a proportional relationship? So when you're looking for a graph showing a proportional relationship, you're going to look for two aspects of the graph. Number one, does it go through the origin of the graph? So does 0, 0, is 0, 0 included as one of the points? Okay, that's your first criteria. The second criteria is that it has to be all in a straight line. So if I look at this graph, I see that these points are in a straight line, but then these points are not on the same straight line as these 3 points. So this is not a proportional relationship just by that virtue alone. Next question. Here's another one. So if we can type 50 words, we can do the equation of this. We don't need the graphs. Darius can type 50 words per minute. What equation models this relationship if the input is time of coffee and output is words type? Time of coffee. Who wrote this question? Somebody who clearly needed some coffee. It was, yeah, so anyway, the equation that models this relationship, it's 50 words per minute, y equals 50x, or some form of that. Again, we're looking at, we don't know the answer choices, so that is the correct answer choice, y equals 50x. Next question, is this a proportional relationship? We can use the same criteria we just talked about earlier. Is the graph a straight line, and does it cross the 0, 0 point? Here's your 0, 0 point. This line does not intersect there. It actually, at 0x, y is 5, so that's clearly not a proportional relationship based on that information. Proportional relationships must have a blank multiplier. There's 4 answer choices for you. One of those should be constant, and that is the correct answer. Proportional relationships need to have a constant of proportionality. Coffee costs $2 per pound. How much will 13 pounds of coffee cost? If it's 2 per pound and you have 13 pounds, you know that that's going to be $2 per pound. That's $26. 13 times 2. Next question. If you have an equation that models this relationship, if the input is pounds of coffee and output is the cost, that's y equals 2x. Y equals 2x would be the correct equation for that. And then the last item here, what makes a graph proportional? So again, if it's proportional, it makes a graph. What makes a graph proportional is that it crosses through the origin and is a straight line. So in this case, there's your description, or there's your answer choice for that. Okay, so that's all the flashcards. That's just looking through those particular questions. Now let's look at the results of the class. This is sorted based on accuracy. Okay, so we had 13 out of the 16 students. So we had one student not finish all of the questions, but we had 3 students who also did not start the quiz. So make sure that, hey, when this stuff is on your task list, guys, I don't ask a lot of you during class time. Just try to make sure you get through everything. Okay, so today especially. Let's look at all the questions. So we had the first question that was the easiest, or the most accurate. 85% of the students that answered the question were able to tell whether this was a proportional relationship or not. So very good, nice job. Just remember again, it's got to go through the origin. So the 2 of you that said no, even though it's a straight line, it's not proportional because it's got to start at the origin. We have a proportional relationships that have a constant multiplier. Constant is the correct answer. Someone said variable and changing. They have to have the same multiplier. What changes is the y value based on the x value. So just remember that's your answer choice there. 77% of you were able to correctly predict or correctly calculate that $26 is the cost per pound. $24, some of you said it's $24. Not sure how that answer came about, or $15. Oh, actually, I know how you get $15. One of you that said 15. 13 plus 2 would not be the correct way to get that answer. It's 13 times 2. So 77% you got that right. Nice deal. Does this graph show a proportional relationship? 77% of you, again, were able to correctly say yes, although 2 of you had said if you connect the line, it's kind of straight. Kind of straight does not qualify for completely straight, so it has to be completely straight. All the points need to be on the exact same line. And then one of you said the dots are pink. Come on, that's the red herring. Don't pick that answer choice next time. Which equation models this? So okay, so let's take a look at these answer choices here. So y equals 2x is the correct answer. 3 of you had said y equals 2, but remember that if it was y equals 2, that means no matter what x is, y is going to be 2. So that doesn't make sense in the context of the problem. There needs to be something that would change the output value for y, and that's why the y equals 2x is the correct answer. 2 of you had said x equals 2y. Just remember that when we think of proportional relationship formats, the y is going to be the one by itself, not x. So y equals 2x would be the correct answer there. Okay, so this is the one where we had the equation. Which equation again? Kind of the same question as the one we just looked at. So it's similar accuracy. Actually, 62% of you, 8 of you got that right. It maybe even be the same 8 of you, but I can't expand these because I don't want your names to pop up on the video. X equals 50, y equals 50 were the 2 popular wrong answers, and k equals 50. Even though the one that said k equals 50 is technically correct, the k is 50, but they want the equation here. So y equals 50x is the correct format for that. And it's also the only one that really is an equation that involves x and y. So make sure you pick that up on next time. 50 words per minute, 1 hour, how many words can you type? If you said 300 words, that just means you forgot a 0, so it's 60 minutes, not 6 minutes. Or you did 6 times 5 and just added 1 0 and forgot that 6 times 5 is actually 30 with its own 0. So you need to add 2 zeros to that, so that's why that works. And then 30,000 means you added one too many zeros with that. Next question, which one's the unit rate that matches the proportional relationship by this graph? So let's see, you had 8 people get this one right, 60 out of 1, right? And we had 1 hour per 60 miles. This is not the correct direction for this particular unit rate. The y would go first, so y would be on top and the x would be on the bottom. So just remember that next time, okay? 60 hours per 1 mile is the other way to look at that as one incorrect interpretation. It's 60 miles, because miles is on the x-axis, and it's 1 hour that's on the x-axis. I'm sorry, 60 hours is on the y-axis. I'm not sure if I said that right. With this next question, if you said the Chips Ahoy, that means you correctly calculated the unit rate for the Oreos and the Chips Ahoy. For Oreos, that's the wrong unit rate, but if you said they're the same, you have to make sure you're doing unit rate correctly. It's cost divided by weight in this case. So make sure you're doing that in the correct direction next time. 54% of you correctly got the table that models the y equals 2x relationship. 5 of you had said A. You have to make sure that you're looking at the x then the y. So if I did 2 times 6, I wouldn't get 10. I would get 12. So table A would not be the correct table to interpret there. If Darius can type 50 words per minute, which graph models his typing speed? The correct graph was graph A, which is the top left one. And again, I can't bring this to be any bigger, but what I can tell right now is that if I were to divide the y and the x that goes with that top left table, that would be 50. Y divided by x would be 50 for any of the points you pick on that table, on that graph, excuse me. All right, which equation models this relationship? So if I have y equals 25x as the correct answer, some of you had said, 4 of you had said x equals 25y. This is the one where, yeah, the table was 1, 25, 2, 50, 3, 75. So if you said x equals 25y, you just put the equation in the wrong order. Those of you that said k equals 25, again, k is 25, but you need the equation, which is all y and x. So you need that b, y equals 25x correct answer there for that. 3 more questions to go. What is the constant of proportionality in this table? This is the question where k is the correct answer, k equals 25. So those of you that gave an equation here, just remember you're answering the question, right? So if you said b, y equals 25x, or x equals 25y, these equations actually both have 25 as the constant of proportionality, but since the question just wants the constant of proportionality, k equals 25 would be the correct answer there. So 31% of you were able to read that properly. Make sure you're reading and answering the question that's asked, of course. And then the last 2 questions. What makes the graph proportional? The line going through the origin. Most of you had said that. You were absolutely right, the line going through the origin. So actually, the way this question is worded, I totally understand why 9 of you said this answer. The line, because you're saying it's a line, so that's implying that there's only one line. So I can see why this answer was given here. So I would say, you know what, if I was doing a test, I would totally give you credit for this particular question based on the way this question is written. So 9 and 3, so 12 of you got this right. 1 of you said linear. That's not the only requirement. It has to also go through the origin. Okay, and then the last question, the graph that models this particular relationship, the same deal here. This is a graph question where you have to analyze the $2 per pound. The y needs to be 2, and the x needs to be 1. So if you said, most of you had said graph B, and some of you had said graph C, it says the graph A is the correct answer there. You know what is the correct answer? We had talked about that that in the flashcards, but it looks to me like graph C is actually the correct answer, not graph A. So again, another error on the quiz. This is what I get for making quizzes that are questions that other people have written. So they need to fix their questions. So yeah, 5 of you got this one right. Those of you that said A, unfortunately, even though it marked you correct, it's actually the wrong interpretation of that. That would be $0.50 $1 per pound. So that's the incorrect graph with that. All right, so anyway, hopefully this review helped you kind of remember some of the stuff that you've done about proportional relationships. I know it's something we spent a lot of time in when we had class back in the old room 210 at Ponus Ridge. So I'm hopeful that this review will help you get the tasks done that you need to do today. So have a great day and enjoy your weekend. Take care.